Welcome to LOTRO 101. I'm your hostess, your professor, your teacher, the wacky person who decided this was a really great idea. And we have, of course, the rampant stream kitty, who will, of course, be obnoxious throughout the entire show. This is Thief. He's annoying, but I hope he won't interrupt us too often. He will purr at you and run away if he ever sees you. I decided to start with a quote from Babylon 5, and so it begins. Said by, of course, Kosh the Vorlon. My name's there. I am Jane Pryor, also known as Druidsfire on many social media things, such as Twitch, Twitter, all the other fun things. I am the Twitch director for Signum University, which means I basically run the Twitch channel. Keep the bot up to date, keep the commands up to date, make sure if somebody goes live, the show has the right title. And when a show is complete, I then save a permanent video on demand or VOD of that show, because after a short period of time, Twitch likes to delete them. So this is just going to be a session on what is Lord of the Rings Online, what is an MMO, and basically I figured before we get into actually playing the game, which will be a few sessions down the pipeline, I've got 9 currently scheduled. They'll run every week here, Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, assuming nothing weird happens, like my internet goes out or somebody gets sick or something like that. And this silly thing will be a frequent visitor, so I hope you don't mind feline interruptions. Though, of course, with our good and dear friend LOTRO Maven, we have heard her lovely Buddha on streams before, so hopefully nobody will be too concerned. Shush, Thief Kitty. He is so obnoxious, he has his own Twitch emote. Anyway, let's move on and begin at the beginning. Boop. So who am I? As I said, I am the Twitch director for Signum U. I took over from Erithart, Maximilian Hart, who was my predecessor in the role. I am also an officer in the Mythgard Kinship. A kinship is an organization of players. We'll talk more about what kinships actually are. Ours is called Mythgard, not related to the card game. There is one out there that has the same name. An officer just means that I can add other people to the kinship and, do a bit of administrivia. I am an official LOTRO streamer. That means I have permission to stream the game on the official Lord of the Rings Online Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/LOTROstream. In fact, I did yesterday. I am a lifetime account holder, which means many years ago they offered a $200 or $250 or $299 price point. You buy it, you don't have to pay the monthly subscription fee of $15 a month, and that paid for itself many years ago. I'm also a founder account, which means my account was created before the game launched. I have a Bachelor of Arts in History from Penn State University, class of 95. I did actually go on to do some graduate work, a couple of semesters at Xavier University in Cincinnati, but I never actually finished my master's degree. Shame on me. Having to get a job and pay the bills, slightly more of an immediate necessity. So hello, Martini, in Twitch chat. Martini is a good friend from up north in Canuckistan. Brings the best maple cream cookies to America every year for PAX. Wayward Plain, one of the other official LOTRO streamers, and Speeder Pot Pie. Pot pies are tasty. And yes, the lifetime subscription was one of the best investments you could ever make in a video game. Because back then, nobody knew how long the game was going to last. So it was a risky proposition to drop $250, $300 US dollars on a video game when you didn't know how long it was going to last. Back in the day, World of Warcraft was ruling the scene. And there weren't hardly any games that were free to play, so So let's talk about Lord of the Rings Online. It launched in April 24th of 2007. So its anniversary is coming up next month. It'll be a teenager. And it did launch as a monthly subscription service. Back then, most games of this nature, you paid $15 a month, American US dollars. And you got full access to the game. In fact, World of Warcraft pretty much still does it. Most games these days are not that monthly subscription fee. It converted to free-to-play on September 10th, 2010 in North America, November 2nd in 2010 in the EU. And actually, Lord of the Rings Online and its sister game, Dungeons & Dragons Online, which sister in that it's the same company that makes them, they actually pioneered free-to-play behavior for these big-ticket games back in the day, so you can blame LOTRO and DDO for that. LOTRO is, you may also hear it referred to as LOTRO. Generally, the European crew pronounce it that way, or such as our good friend Eldaleth, one of our other Signum channel mods, and also the channel matriarch for LOTRO stream. She basically runs it for the folks at Standing Stone. So at Standing Stone Games, they used to be known as a company called Turbine, and Turbine actually doesn't exist anymore, and we'll explain why in just a few moments. The leading people at Standing Stone Games you might want to be aware of. The game is run by executive producer Rob Ciccolini. He goes by the forum handle of Severlin. We have our beautiful community manager, Jerry Snook, aka Cordovan or Cordovan, depending on which game you're talking about. Our lore master, who could conceivably, if there were a trivia game show featuring Chris Pearson, Professor Corey, Professor Shippey, Professor Drow, and Stephen Colbert, he could hold his own. I'm just saying. Our senior content designer, who does most of the actual in-game story writing, is Jeff Libby, aka Maid of Lions. I will note that Chris Pearson is too cool to have a forum handle. But everybody else, they like to have nicknames like I'm Druidsfire. Everybody has their Twitch handles. So Maid of Lions is our main in-game story writer. And just so if you wanted to know, that the name Maid of Lions is a Voltron reference, because everybody knows the lion Voltron was better than any other variation of Voltron. And also, you may be hearing music in the background, and while that wasn't composed by our current composer is also the head of QA. His name is Bill Champagne, aka Darth Celtics. Most of these folks have been with the game since its inception or before, because when a game launches, it's already been in development for several years. And in fact, Lord of the Rings Online started off as a game called Middle-earth Online. Eventually, they changed the name. Standing Stone Games is based in Needham, Massachusetts. I was there on Monday. In fact, I interviewed Mr. Ciccolini and Mr. Libby. Actually, no, not Mr. Libby, Mr. Champagne. Or as I call them, Rob and Bill. And Cordovan, Jerry, was in the room with us, hanging out, and I was making wisecracks at him occasionally, because I do that. So, Lord of the Rings Online, as you might expect, is licensed by Middle-earth Enterprises, as most Tolkien things are licensed by Middle-earth Enterprises. They do actually have occasional interaction with the Tolkien estate directly. And in fact, one of the recent races added to the game, we'll get into what a race is. They actually had to make a query to the Tolkien estate to say, is that going to be allowed? So the license, and this is one thing that's really interesting. Professor Corey has talked about it in his class. The license for Lord of the Rings Online, held by Standing Stone, includes The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the appendices. They do not include the Silmarillion. They don't include the History of Middle-earth series. It doesn't include anything except literally those 3 pieces of data. And interestingly enough, their license does not include a direct use of the text. So if you see a very important quote in the book, they can't use that direct quote. They have to get around it by paraphrasing in some fashion. It's really interesting to see how creative Libby and those guys get when they're trying to get around, well, we want to use this iconic quote, but we need to figure out a way to say it without saying it. Standing Stone has the game published by Daybreak Games from San Diego. And previously, when the company was called Turbine, their publisher was Warner Brothers Games. And now the reason Turbine is out of the picture is because Warner Brothers wanted to turn Turbine into a mobile studio, making games for, your phones and whatnot. And there was still enough of an interest in both Lord of the Rings Online and the other two games, the other two MMOs that were created by Turbine, the other two being Dungeons & Dragons Online and Asheron's Call, that they took the two teams that made those games, made a new company, and got a new publisher. There we go. Sadly, Asheron's Call is still languishing in Turbine's, Warner Brothers' hands, because it's a lot of work to run a game, and poor Severlin already runs two. So, as we see on here, Lord of the Rings Online has an ESRB rating of T for teen and a PEGI rating of 12. Now, ESRB is the Electronic Safety Ratings Board, and it basically is like a parental guidance thing. It's like, well, do I want my kids to play this game or not? And for the most part, there's not a lot of, gore. There is alcohol and tobacco use in the game. Of course, tobacco in the form of pipeweed was a major lore point, and there was actually discussions before the game launched whether or not they would actually have pipeweed in the game, and yes, you can. Welcome, Hercumat. PEGI is the Pan-European Game Information thing, and it goes by ages, so age 12. So if your kid is functionally age 12 or above, then this game is okay for them. If they're below that, it might be a little bit difficult for them. The game is officially supported in English, French, and German. And while there are efforts on the parts of players to do their own translations, those are the only ones that Standing Stone will actually officially localize their content in. Like, there is a French client for the game, there is a German client for the game, and they do try to translate their, their official web posts and, announcements into those languages as well. My cat is meowing again. I do apologize. All right, let's move on. All the content. The base game, when it originally launched, was called Shadows of Angmar, and it focused pretty much on Eriador. The areas like Forhel, Breeland, the Lone Lands, Rivendell, the Misty Mountains, and that's pretty much in the Shire and Ered Luin. Now, it doesn't include stuff in all of those areas of Eriador. Come here, you. Come on. Stop howling. Come here. He will do this. Come on, you ding-dong. Since 2007, there have been 7 full expansions to the game. They are called Mines of Moria, Siege of Mirkwood, Rise of Isengard, Riders of Rohan, Helm's Deep, Mordor, and Minas Morgul is the most recent one. Even lifetime accounts such as mine, or VIP accounts, which pay the monthly subscription fee, have to buy expansions. You can either buy them, we'll go into that in just a minute. So in between expansions, they do what are called game updates, and they add new content and new areas to explore, and they're also called quest packs. So you can buy them separately if you're not VIP or lifetime, and they are free to VIPs, but can be purchased with what are called LOTRO points. We'll go into that in a minute. For folks who are not VIP, hi. Yeah, I do have a cat. He is obnoxious, and I apologize. So between the Helm's Deep expansion and the Mordor expansion, they were actually planning on getting away from doing expansions every couple of years, and just doing, more quest packs. And they did that for pretty much all of their Gondor content. But then, people were like, we want an expansion. So that's why Mordor happened. Expansions of quest packs generally have an update number or a patch number. Like a big one that ends in a 0, like 24.0 is going to be like a big update, and like 25.0 was the number assigned to the Minas Morgul expansion. And they'll also have a name, like Riders of Rohan is the name of an expansion, or Legacy of the Necromancer was the name of update 24, I believe. Or no, that was the Veils of... Was it the Veils of Unduin? What was it called? It was called something, Cat. Do you remember? No, he doesn't. So smaller updates that are geared toward, you know, fixing bugs in the game or, you know, adding little bits of content are called patches. Or point updates, and will look like, you know, like you see there, 25.1, or a much smaller one, like a quick fix, will be like 21.1.1, depending on how intensive the fixes are. You may also see the name hotfix, which refers to a fix they place in the game without actually turning the game off and turning it back on. Seriously. This is what I have to deal with. Alright, now, in order to play LOTRO, your computer needs to be able to handle it. Get off of here. Thing is, it only works on PC and somewhat on a Macintosh. If you're on a PC, you have to be running Windows 64-bit client or better. Windows 7, that is. Windows 10, of course, is perfectly fine. The game has what is called a 32-bit or a 64-bit client. 64-bit is better, but some folks may not be running a 64-bit operating system, so you may need to use the 32-bit client. And on some computers, even though they're newer, the 64-bit client doesn't work right, so you use the other one, the older one. With Macintosh, it's a little bit more interesting. In previous years, they actually had a native Mac OS client. They don't anymore. They use a Wine client. I'm not sure exactly what Wine stands for, but the joke is Wine is not an emulator, W-I-N-E. Basically, Wine lets you run Windows on a Mac. The problem is the Wine client is not currently compatible with the newest versions of the Mac operating system called Catalina, or anything newer, because Catalina is a 64-bit client or 64-bit operating system, and the Wine client is currently coded at 32 bits. So if you're on Catalina, you can't use the Wine client, unfortunately. However, I've heard rumors on the DDO in the DDO community, or maybe it was yesterday in the LOTRO stream, that the folks who have created Wine are working on a 64-bit version. So if that happens, hopefully our Mac users who are on Catalina will get to use the Wine client again. In the meantime, you can directly run the Windows client, or indirectly run it, through the built-in Boot Camp, which comes with Mac's operating system. Or you can use a paid third-party application called Parallels. I think it's something like $75 a year or something like that. That's how Professor Corey does it. So he runs Parallels, which runs Windows in the background, and then he runs the Windows client through Parallels. On your computer needs to have at least 4 gigabytes of RAM. Actually, I'm going to recommend more than 8, and here's why. You need enough RAM on your computer to run your computer. You also need extra to run the game, and the game is extremely graphics intensive. It's not like a top-of-the-line graphics game, but it's pretty, and to run it really well in the best quality, you're going to need more RAM. I personally run... My machine has 32 gigs of RAM because I'm a crazy person. Speaking of 32 gigs, you will need 32 gigabytes of disk space to save the game on because, again, game has lots of graphics involved, lots of sound files. The game itself takes up space. And I will recommend that when the time comes and we start downloading the game, that you choose the option to download the high-resolution graphics because it makes the game look prettier. There is a website there. You can type that bad boy in. And I'm going to pop it in the chat here. Watch this. If I don't mess this up. Copy pasta. Boom. That is the website that gives you more information about the system requirements of LOTRO on both Mac and PC. And we'll go to that website later on because it will be very helpful as a name. Let's move on. So if you haven't already created a LOTRO account, this is what you're going to want to do. The website's right there, https://signup.lotro.com. I'm going to plop that in the chat too. Boop. You're going to want to fill out the credentials that it's asking for. You'll need to pick a unique username. I don't believe you can ever change it, so make it something that you're not going to hate later on. Use a strong password that you don't use anywhere else, and I'll explain why in just a few moments. I have to officially recommend you review the terms of service and the privacy policy. Yes, the big long splat of legalese. The reason you'll want to do that is because ignorance is never an excuse if anything ever goes into the courts. I'm not aware of anything having gone to the courts, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened, that somebody wanted to sue the company over the game and they got raffle-stomped by the lawyers. You'll have to fulfill the CAPTCHA to prove that you are a live human being. Thief Kitty cannot manage that, so he doesn't have a LOTRO account. And then you click sign up today. And then suddenly you have an account, because you can't play LOTRO without an account. Alright, and once you've gone through that, it is, well, not yet time to download the game, so sit tight. We're going to go over the kinds of accounts that you can have with LOTRO. There are basically 3 kinds of accounts, and then you have little, little add-ons depending on the kind of account you have. There is a free-to-play account. Anybody can have a free-to-play account. Costs you $0. It gives you basic limited access to content and features. Any feature that is locked because you're not a paying subscriber or have unlocked something permanently on your account, you'll see a little coin symbol with the Standing Stone Games logo on it. And that just means you have to, make a purchase to get it. Now, you can either purchase things with a currency you can earn in-game called LOTRO points, or you can shell out real money for it to buy the LOTRO points to get what you're looking for. The next step up is a premium account. That is where you can unlock the premium status by actually spending money on the game, such as spending money to buy an expansion, or spending money to buy LOTRO points to buy something in the store. There are fewer restrictions. Things like you can have more characters on your account per server. You can have certain classes, I believe. No, I'm wrong. Not classes. You can have... There are certain things that are unlocked when you become premium that stay unlocked. And there is a list at the bottom we're going to go over. Also, if you were a paying subscriber at any point in time, even for just 1 month, and you stop paying that monthly subscription, your account will lapse into premium status. Certain things will remain unlocked from VIP tenure, some things won't. VIP basically means you're paying a monthly fee to the game. You can buy a monthly subscription in the form of like 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 months at a time. Sometimes there is a deal on that where you can get them to where doesn't come out to $15 a month, and you like buy jelly beans in bulk at the store. More jelly beans means less per jelly bean kind of deal. And when you're VIP, you can go anywhere and do any quest in the game, except you still have to buy expansions the same as everybody else. And then there's a couple of little tags you can have added to an account. Neither of these are available any longer. One is the lifetime purchase that I'd mentioned before. Basically, it's a permanent VIP status. I don't have to pay the $15 a month fee. I still have to buy expansions. Again, same as everybody else. I do get a monthly stipend, and this VIPs get this too, a monthly stipend of 500 LOTRO points to spend in the store. It's kind of like a perk. There are VIP perks. The other status is called Founder, and they are only for folks who pre-ordered the game way back in 2007. So, Founder. All right. More details, including restrictions and what remains permanently unlocked if you revert to premium, is available on this website, which I will drop in chat for you to click on if you so desire. And that will tell you more about what's locked, unlocked, and, you know, what the limitations or lack thereof are for these 3 basic account types. Basically, unless you were back, you pre-ordered back in the day or had dropped that $250 or $300, lifetime and founder doesn't really apply, but that's okay. So those are your account types. And you can actually have multiple LOTRO accounts if you want to. I personally have... I forget how many. I have 1 lifetime account. I have 1 premium account that I use for certain concert-related things, and then I have free-to-play account that I use for other concert things. It's kind of cool. And there's no restriction on, you know, you can use the same email to register with multiple accounts. They don't care. Some games won't let you use the same email address multiple times, but LOTRO doesn't care. All right, serious stuff time. Account security. Yes, it's a video game. Yes, it's not as important as securing your work account or your bank account or your personal email address. However, you still want to protect your LOTRO account from bad guys, because sadly there are bad guys who prey especially on folks who don't know better. So, account security. We do not have, I shouldn't say they do not have, 2-factor or multi-factor authentication. So basically the only thing protecting your account from a bad guy is your password, which is why I highly recommend using a strong password that has capital letters, numbers, special characters like punctuation. Then you don't use that password anywhere else, especially anything critical like your bank account, your PayPal account, your credit card account. Anything involving your money or identity, don't use the same password. And don't share your account password with anybody else, including, and this is a trick that some people do, some people like to pretend they work for the company to try to trick you into giving them your password. 2 rules on that. Number 1, employees won't ask you for your password because they don't need to, because they already have access to your account from the back end. And secondly, anybody who claims to be an employee of Standing Stone Games, their character name will have a plus sign in front of it. So if you see somebody with their name of Plus Cordovan, that is actually Jerry Snook, our community manager, actually in-game on his administrator character. We recommend you do not click on any suspicious links that purport to be an official site. Now, this is also something that happens with a lot of other video games. If it doesn't end in LOTRO.com, DaybreakGames.com, or StandingStoneGames.com, they are a faker. Don't click on it, because a lot of those sites, again, they will be trying to trick you into providing personal information, and once they do that, they swipe your account and off they go. You may see advertisements in the game saying, hey, we will power level your character so you can get to the end of the game really quickly. Secret, there is no end of the game. They will also suggest that they can sell in-game gold so you can buy stuff. Most of those sites, again, are trying to steal your information. They will say, well, hey, power leveling, we'll log into your account, level your character quickly, and then, you know, you get your account back. Well, first of all, you just gave them your password. Even if you set up a temporary one, they have access to your account. Typically, what will happen in those cases is they will clean your account out. It's like a thief. You just let a thief into your house and they just took all your stuff. They can then also ruin your reputation in the game by posting rude things on the forums and getting your account banned. They can also use that account to trick other people. It's like, oh, hey, this is somebody I know. I'm used to seeing this character name, and they're saying something. This must be trustworthy. It's kind of like the notion where you get an email from your mom, you know, with a link in it. It's of course it's your mom. You're going to trust your mom, right? Don't do that. So don't patronize those folks. plus the fact that any money you give to those kind of sites, Standing Stone sees not a single dime out of that, so you're not helping the company. All right, there are more details, proper grammar here, Druidsfire. There are more details on this big fatty link I'm going to drop in Twitch chat. Boom. Some of that information is a little bit out of date because it comes from the days when the company was still under Turbine, and some of the information is no longer accurate. But in general terms, the gist of that link there is very useful. Moving right along. So let's actually download and install the game. We have already gone through verifying that your system meets the requirements. I hope you've already done that. And if not, take the time to do so. You put this thing on pause if you're watching asynchronously and go check that out. And the website you're going to want to go to download the game if you are an English speaker is going to be this one. Now, if you want to download the French client, you would replace the /en with /fr. And if you want the German client, you want /de instead of /en. The downside to using the French or German clients is they are localized, so sometimes the translations are a little bit wonky. Sometimes it's a work in progress. You select PC or Mac on that website. Remember our warning about Mac OS Catalina or newer. It is not compatible. So you have to use Boot Camp or Parallels with the Windows client. In the case where you're on an older version of Mac OS, you can use the Mac version. I use the Mac version on my ancient iMac from 11 years ago. It works. It's very slow because the game... that Mac doesn't have enough memory to handle Mac and the game. I do highly recommend. It gives you the choice. Do you want to download the high resolution pack? Do so. Again, you'll get better quality of the game as you're playing it. It'll look better, but it will take up more space on your hard drive. Depending on what your computer setup is like, I do recommend installing it on a solid state drive or SSD. It does not stand for Superstar Destroyer in this case. Versus a traditional mechanical hard drive. Some computers, they come with a teensy SSD to run the computer. Then they have a larger regular drive to put your programs on. In that circumstance, you're going to have to put it on the other drive. It's still going to work just fine. It's just better on an SSD, I'm just saying. And that's a computer thing in general. That's not even a LOTRO thing. So it's going to download a file, which is the installer program. It should be named lotrolauncher.exe. Or it'll say LOTRO Launcher, I believe, or lotroinstaller.dmg if it's a Mac. If it's the wine client. And you're going to follow the prompts when you open that bad boy up. Alright? And it's going to take a while, because once you get through the part where you're telling it where to install and everything, again, if you're not installing it on your main drive because you have a second drive for all your programs, make sure you choose the custom installation, because otherwise it'll try to install it on your main drive, and you may not have enough space if it's got a small main drive. And then you're going to have to wait for it to patch. And we're not going to wait for it to patch because it's going to take a while. And in an homage to our lore monkey from Professor Corey's show on Fridays on the LOTRO channel, make a cup of tea and get yourself a batch of scones because it's going to be a while. So this is the part of the cooking show where they cut to pulling the finalized product out of the oven, because it will take a while. So if you're in a hurry, don't worry about it. We're not going to load into the game. Well, you're not going to load into the game today because we have a lot to discuss. 9 sessions before we even really get into the party here, because there's a lot to explain. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to teach this class, is because LOTRO is so big. It is so mind-blowingly, awesomely big. And it can be very intimidating. Let's get that out of the way. All right, what have we got next? Servers. Let's talk servers while things are patching. All right. There are basically 3 kinds of live servers. Live means that they're available all the time. Anybody can play them. They're grouped into 3 regions right now. North American, which were originally in the Boston area. Then the European ones were somewhere in Europe itself. I think they were in the UK. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. And there are legendary servers, which are a fairly new kind of server. And we'll talk about them here in a little bit. The North American servers are named Arkenstone, Brandywine, Crick Hollow, Gladden, and Landreval. The EU servers are Belagare, Evernight, Gwahir, Laurelin, and Saranen. And the legendary servers are called Honor and Ithil, the sun and the moon. All right. What is the difference between these servers? Because right now, you can play on any of those servers. Well, the 2 legendaries do require you to have a subscription. We'll talk about that in a moment. But it used to be back in the day, you couldn't really play the European servers unless you had a European account, and vice versa with the North American ones. Because a different company called Codemasters in the UK ran the European servers for the folks at Turbine. And some years ago, well, in 2011, Turbine brought those servers back to America. And that has caused some problems. There are also test servers available, which are not live servers. They're not always available. One is called Palantir. That is a closed alpha server. It's covered by a non-disclosure agreement, and you have to be invited to participate on that server. The folks who are on Palantir are working directly with the developers to work on new content for the game, to offer feedback and suggestions on how to make new features in the game. They do a lot of testing, and the reason it's covered by NDA is basically marketing folks like to present stuff in a certain fashion, and if it's not presented right, you don't want to have your players see something that may or may not actually come to the live servers. You don't want to see how the burger is being made, basically. However, when they're ready to let the regular player base check stuff out, they will put that content onto Bullroar, which is the open beta server. Bullroar used to be only available to VIP players, but some years ago they decided anybody's allowed to play, and Bullroar is where you will find testing of new stuff like new quests, new systems in the game that help you do things like the legendary items, which we'll talk about a few sessions down the road. Shush. And basically the Bullroars, these servers require a completely separate installation of the game. So for these other servers, you notice we mentioned we have these little tags next to some of them, like Landreval and Laurelin have RP-E. RP stands for roleplay. E stands for encouraged. Back in the day, Laurelin's E stood for enforced, which was a much more stringent environment for role players. People who want to really get immersed in Tolkien, where they think about nothing they do in the game is out of character. They don't talk to people out of character, or they use special ways to speak to them out of character. But everything else is strictly their character's perspective. It's really cool. The DE, Belagare, and Gwahir, they are both the German language servers, and Saranen is the French language server. Fun fact, you can run the English client and go to those French and German servers, and everything will be in English for you except what other players say. Because, obviously, players who speak those languages will be over there, for the most part. You really wish they redid the look of the UI to be more like WoW, maybe? Yeah, there are things that you can do to the UI to make it look a lot different. And we'll discuss that in a bit at another time. Now, one thing about these server regions, you cannot transfer characters or items between the 3 kind of servers. You can't go from North America to Europe. You can't go from Legendary to Europe. You can't go from anything to Legendary. You can transfer stuff and characters in normal circumstances between servers of the same region. So you can transfer stuff from Landreval to Crickhollow, but you can't go from Landreval to Laurelin. And there's a database technical reason for that more than anything else. Right now, you can't transfer anything anywhere because they are revamping the transfer process, and that is a frequently asked question to our community manager every week. And in fact, I asked the executive producer about that on Monday, and they're hoping to get that restored in weeks rather than months. All of these live servers above are identical in content except for the legendary servers, which are locked into an earlier expansion, and they're slowly progressing to the current expansion. They also, the legendaries, require VIP status, but you have to be a lifetime member or paying the monthly VIP fee. In 2011, Turbine resumed control of the EU servers from the British company Codemasters and brought the actual hardware back to the US. In 2015, a number of servers were closed. They used to have 29 live servers between EU and NA. This is before the legendaries came to be. And there were so many people so far spread out that people couldn't get groups together to do content. And people were just, it's like, well, we have too many servers. So they consolidated into 5 remaining servers for EU, 5 remaining for NA. And people were requested to transfer their characters to one or the other. And again, you couldn't, you got to choose what your destination was in the same region. So like my characters were originally born on a server called Silverlode, and many of them transferred to Crickhollow. In fact, the music you're hearing in the background is the music in Lothlorien, because I have a character logged into Lothlorien right now, hanging out with Celeborn and Galadriel, which you'll see here in a few moments toward the end of the class, because we're going through this pretty quickly. But we're going to answer questions here at the end if folks are having difficulty with getting their account set up or installing the game. To be fair, I was a history major, so I am not going to be able to get crunchy with the technical side of why isn't this thing working. There's some stuff I know just from osmosis, but worst case scenario, if it's something we can't figure out, then we will cheerfully direct you to help.standingstonegames.com to, get it sorted out. Signum, the beautiful folks who, as part of this channel, we have the Mythgard Academy folks maintain a formal presence on the Landreval server in the US area, and on the Honor server for the 2 legendaries. And all of the servers are now physically located in New Jersey, because that's where the data center is. And therefore, you're going to come across a concept called server time. What is the server time? It's always going to be based on Eastern time. So tonight in America, daylight savings kick in. Daylight saving kicks in because savings is singular. And that means Eastern time will now be 4 hours offset from UK time, because they will still be on Greenwich Mean Time until British Summer Time kicks in on the 29th. So for like 3 weeks, the world is askew, and then it happens again in the fall where we jump back first, and I think we jump back second actually. Doesn't matter. So, if you ever want to know when events happen, pull up a site called World Time Buddy and select 2 time zones. One is for your time zone and then the other for Eastern time zone. And then move the slider back and forth, and that will help you find what time to show up to a specific event. So that is the fun of servers. And last night, actually, there was an issue where all of Standing Stone's stuff was unavailable at like 12:30 in the morning. I was logged into the other game doing their anniversary event, and my character, I was like, connection to server is lost. And there were people streaming on the LOTRO channel and on the DDO channel, and everyone's like, what's going on? Come to find out, we lost connection to the data center, which runs the games, and the games themselves are fine. the games didn't crash. We just lost connection to the servers the games are on. So because I'm that person, I texted Cordovan and said, hey, we kind of can't get hold of the games. And he notified whoever needed to know, and it was fixed in about, I'd say like half hour, 45 minutes tops. So they were actually really on the ball there. So it was really good. All right. Helpful links. Look at all this. Look at all this. All right. So these sites, there is a pinned, these are linked in, well, these are actually linked in the LOTRO 101 channel in the Signum U Discord. And in fact, let me link the Signum U Discord. We've got a moobot command for that. So if you go to that Discord link, if you're familiar with Discord, you can join the Signum U Discord and hang out with us. There is a channel called LOTRO 101, and those are linked there. So, the official ones, LOTRO.com, those are the player forums where if you have a problem with the game, it's always wise to look on the forums first to see if there are if anybody else is having the same problem, right? Or if it's something a little bit weird and you just want some advice, like, well, what would you recommend I do for blah, blah, blah? And you're going to get 20 different answers in a lot of cases. It's fine. If you have a problem with your account, you've detected a bug, you can't log into your account, or you're having a problem with one of your characters or an item, you can go to help.standingstonegames.com and put in a ticket, or search their help files to see if there's any answers to your questions. You can also ask the fine folks at twitch.tv/LOTROstream. That is the official Twitch channel of Lord of the Rings Online. On Fridays at noon Eastern, from noon to 1, Cordovan, our community manager, does his show Chord of the Rings. I love a bad pun. I used to actually guest host that with him for like a couple years, but it's like, you know what? Training wheels are off. You do it yourself. It's fine. However, a lot of us who stream on that channel, when you come into our shows, you can ask your questions, and we do try to be very helpful. There are shows in English, French, and German. We just added another French streamer just the other day. So if you have questions in your specific language and you're having difficulty, translating, come here, cat. Come here. Come here. You are obnoxious. So if you have questions and you're just not getting the help you need on an English speaker, but you primarily speak French, then I'd recommend the shows by French Girl Gaming, or Ferlina is our new dude. Our German. Do I also read the questions here? Yes, Thomas Delgado. I do read questions. So if you have any questions about downloading the game, the history of the game, or installing the game, please drop them in Twitch chat. You can also, if you don't feel comfortable asking in Twitch, you can definitely hit me up on Discord. I am one of the admins of the Signum U Discord, so you can drop your question in the LOTRO 101 channel, or just send me a DM if that works out better for you. Hi. I can't answer generic questions about I can answer some questions about the game, but I do not work for Standing Stone, so I do not represent them. And I'm a little bit surprised I went through all of that in just less than an hour. Hi. So next week's class, we're going to go over... let's see if we can get you a little preview going on here. Shush. You silly kitty. Oh yeah, we're going to explore the user interface. But in the meantime, let's actually go take a look at the game itself. I logged a character into Lothlorien so you could listen to some music while I was speaking. Because I remember that when Professor Corey does his classes Tuesday nights for Exploring Lord of the Rings, he actually is logged into the game and you can hear the game music behind him. What are you doing, cat? He's being really obnoxious. So I can tell a little bit more about the history of the game. Is there anything specific that you're looking for? I'm actually going to throw something at you, except you're hiding in the stairwell. He's a silly kitty. Alright, we're going to go look into the game. How can you join the Mythgard kinship? That's a very good question, Thomas. At the end, if you already have a character in the game, I or any one of the other officers, you just send us an invite, and then we can get you in. I'm actually not logged into Landreval on my Mythgard character right now. I needed to be on a hunter because I wanted to do a little bit of a tour. So let's go take a look at the game. Boop. I'm hanging out with a couple of awesome people. And I'm actually logged into my own personal kinship, which is called Radio Free Gallifrey. It is named after a radio show I did for 10 years, playing silly comedy music. So this is Lord of the Rings Online. We are in Lothlorien in the House of Celeborn, and Celeborn is here. And Galadriel of the amazing hair is here. And that's my character, Kiriana. And so this is what the user interface looks like, or the UI. We have my characters. We're going to go over this a lot more in the next series. So this is basically all of the things that I can do as my character, how much experience I have, what kind of mounts I have over here. This is what's called the mini-map. You can see where you are. Oh, you want to know about what happened to the changeover to Standing Stone? Well, I actually know a lot about that, because I was there when that happened. Not at Standing Stone, but basically what happened was Turbine was like, we want to be a mobile studio. And they were making, like, Batman Arkham Asylum or whatever. They were doing Batman stuff, because WB, Warner Brothers, they owned the Batman license in DC Comics and all the other fun stuff. But the folks at Turbine who were making LOTRO and DDO were like, oh, we still want to make these. These games are still viable. They're still making money. So I don't know all of the legal terms of everything, but a new company was formed, Standing Stone Games LLC, registered in the state of Delaware. And what happened was ownership of the games transferred to Standing Stone. Turbine was over here. They actually were sharing the same office space still for a long time. And a lot of the folks still worked on both. In fact, previous executive producer Athena Peters, who was our hostess last Friday at the Adventure Pub in Arlington, Mass., because that's what she does now, she actually stayed with Turbine. And she was the executive producer for one of the Batman games for the long time. So Rob Ciccolini took over as executive producer. He was the EP of Asheron's Call and Asheron's Call 2. He took over to be in charge of Standing Stone Games. However, he doesn't own Standing Stone. We're not entirely sure who does own Standing Stone. The current fan theory is that Daybreak Games owns the company. All we know is that Severlin has a boss. Rob Ciccolini, a.k.a. Severlin, has a boss, and it's Jack Emmert from Daybreak Games, who is now the CEO of Dimensional Inc. that runs DCU Online. DC Universe Online. So Daybreak stepped in to publish the game in place of Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers and Turbine are gone. In fact, if you go to the building, the former Turbine is still in the same building right now as Standing Stone. They're in a different area of the building now. And it no longer says Turbine. It says WB Games Boston. And so Standing Stone is an independent company. One of the really cool things about Standing Stone being an independent company, well, one of the downsides is they're no longer really a AAA MMO. An MMO stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. Called an MMO. And so they're not really a AAA. With AAA are like top of the line. It's like, you know, you have your AAA baseball, which is your major leagues. Then you have your, you know, your farm teams and whatnot. And so what happens in this case, it's more like the NCAA, is Standing Stone is its independent company, And Daybreak is basically throwing money at them, providing some support. For example, if you want to apply for a job at Standing Stone, which there's actually a 3D character artist job available right this moment at Standing Stone. If you have those skills, you apply on the Daybreak website. Daybreak is the name on the paychecks. But Standing Stone is independent. The really cool thing is Daybreak really doesn't, throw its weight around in terms of the day-to-day development of the game. They let Rob do it on his own. And as long as the game's making money, I don't think anybody cares. So, we are in the Lothlorien right now, and I can't hear what's going on, which is just really cool music, but I thought you might be interested in seeing a bit of Lorien itself, if you haven't seen it before. With the flets and whatnot, and there are certain things that you can get, like if you see this person with the title of Flet Runner. And if you have a fear of heights, like I do, Lorien is a bit of a challenge. We're going to go take a quick tour of Lorien, and then we're going to go wander around some other places. This elf is parched. We're going to run down the tree here with the carpet. And this is Lorien during the day. What time of day is it? It is afternoon. Lorien is golden and pretty and beautiful and wonderful, as you can see. But it gets gorgeous. It's so beautiful when the daytime cycle switches to nighttime or even dusk and whatnot, because it gets all purpley. So the golds and the purples, like, oh, it's so pretty. And the buildings up top have blue lights coming out of them, or it's like a blue background light. It's really cool. And of course, you have swan fountains because they're swan fountains. And you've got the Malorns here. The Melrin, I should say. And you got a swan fountain because there's, of course, going to be a swan fountain. And you see elves of some of them will have actual names. You can interact with characters from the books in Lord of the Rings Online, which is really cool. Sometimes you can actually pretend to be a member of the canonical characters. During certain sessions. We'll get into that a little bit more at another time, but this is pretty much Lorien. One of the things about the game, and you've probably noticed this if you watch Professor Corey, is that the game space is very compressed versus what is available in the books. It's simply because if they did like a one-to-one, like 1 foot in the game was 1 foot in the books, oh my god, the game would be so freaking huge. And the game is really huge. And let me explain why. Map. This is the map of Middle-earth. Right? You can currently play in Ered Luin, most of Eriador, a good chunk of Rovanion, all of Rohan, most of Gondor, and a good chunk of Mordor. So, for example, Eriador, all these places with red names, these are places you can go. You notice there's nothing here. I expect there will be at some point in the future. So you can go to the Shire. This is the old map of the Shire. It's not going to be exactly the way it was in the books, but they do try their very level best to make it appear as close to the books as they possibly can, while sacrificing as little as possible to make a game that, doesn't take up like 5 million gigabytes on your system. So this is the Shire. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. We're gonna go to Eriador in general. Let's do it a different way. Alright. So we're currently in Lorien, which is in Rovanion. And any of the red names are places you can go. Actually, the Vales of Anduin should be red, because you can go there now. You can see the Argonath. You can go to Edoras. You can go to Helm's Deep. You can go to Isengard. You can go to Fangard. You will meet Treebeard. You can go to Dol Guldur, You can go to Dale, Lake Town. Felagoth is a name created for the halls of the Elven King, Thranduil, Legolas' dad. You can go to Erebor, the Lonely Mountain. You can go to, why is Rohan always like that on this map? It drives me bananas. There we go. We can go to East Rohan. You go to the Eaves of Fangorn. You will get to experience the Entmoot in a fashion, and it's really cool. See the Argonath. So there is a mix and match of maps in the game. Here's West Rohan. Oh, hey, I didn't realize that was there. Oh, I know why that is there. That's where the Rohan housing is. You can go to Gondor, which is broken up into... We haven't... Actually, I just lied. We cannot yet go to the Anphilas, which is one of the few red names you can't go to. Maybe future content. Western Gondor, Central Gondor, Eastern Gondor. You will visit Pelargir and help Aragorn and the Army of the Dead free up Pelargir. You will go through Ithilien looking for Faramir. You will get to visit the city of Minas Tirith. You will get to experience the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Oh my god, that was done so well. I loved it. And this is Old Anorion. This is before the battle. And one of the cool things about the game is they have what's called phased content. So content will adjust based on whether you are doing stuff before the Battle of the Pelennor or after the Battle. And you can go back and forth. There's not a lot of content that you can never go back and revisit in some fashion. And yes, you can go to Mordor. The most recent expansion of the game just added Minas Morgul. This is one of the two areas. Yes, you can visit Cirith Ungol. In fact, just on Wednesday, they added a new raid to the game. A raid is a big set of content where you're fighting big bosses. It is generally the considered end game content. It's for the highest, the best geared characters. And the end boss is Shelob herself, because she did survive the events of the books. Because here's the cool thing is, there's sometimes things where we players are like, well, how can that be? Oh, you also, in certain cases, can visit the War of the Last Alliance if you're a high elf. This is the Wastes, but this is Mordor. And yes, you can indeed go up part of the slopes of Mount Doom. I don't recommend it because it is very hot there, and you will die. But yeah, you can visit the remains of Barad-dûr. And one of the cool things is the devs filled in a lot of the blanks of, okay, well, what happened when everybody, like the Great Company went south and the Fellowship went south? What happened to everything going on behind here? Because, there was trouble with the Southerners in Bree. We know there was an attack on the Prancing Pony. We know from the lore that there was an attack on Erebor. What's going on with all these other things? So one of the cool things I like about LOTRO is that not only do we get to fill in those blanks, we also get to interact with the Fellowship in ways that make sense. Like, we'll talk to them. We'll be there when they depart Rivendell. We'll be part of the company hanging out, waving goodbye at Rivendell. We'll run into them later. We will actually get to meet I won't say reincarnated. I would say the revitalized Gandalf as the White Wizard in Lorien. I just did that on one of my characters the other day. It was really cool. There's all these places that you can go, and that you can pretty much, as long as your character is of a sufficient level to survive, you can go to any of these places. I mean, you can go there regardless of what your account type is. The account type just tells you whether or not you can do the actual questing. And we'll get to the questing in a later class. So, does anybody have any questions while I go take us to somewhere else really, really cool? We are going to go To the Hall of the King. Ooh. Well, let's go to the Hall under the mountain. Since we mentioned Erebor, we're gonna go to Erebor. So we're gonna do a quick tour of Lord of the Rings Online. I don't have unlocks for a lot of the places yet on this particular character, but I have enough. So this is Erebor. I'm gonna ride a goat because you can't ride a horse in under the mountain. We're gonna go see King Thorin III. So we are within the Lonely Mountain. We're gonna go outside real quick and take a quick look at it. And I always really love this. This is pretty gorgeous. You can go through Moria, following the footsteps of the company. One thing I like about LOTRO, and this is something that is not true of other Lord of the Rings themed games, is I don't feel necessarily like a second banana to the Fellowship. It's like I'm following in their footsteps on a lesser version. Here's another player. Look, it's another player. And there's a character of a... Whoops, sorry about that. So this is... Let me turn names on. So this is King Thorin III. He is rather old, as you can see. Very, very fine beard there on that gentleman dwarf. Very, very festively attired. So... That's the king of the dwarves of the Lonely Mountain, and now we're going to go outside and we can take a look and see how it is. Martini, why didn't I see you at PAX? I'm so sad about that. So this character is a hunter. We're going to talk about classes at a later time. Again, I don't want to get too much into detail because we're going to get crunchy in later classes about, you know, later sessions about what class does what they're good for. If you ask a certain player called Chromite, male elves are not good for anything. Come on, you. Come on. Whoop. There we go. It's going to look a lot like that. I'm still inside. And we're going to go out, and I'm going to switch to a different mount, because the goat is fine. The goat is fine. But it's not as fast as my war steed. When you get to Rohan, you can get something called a war steed, which is... It's like driving a race car versus driving your mom's Ford Pinto. Alright, let's hop on the war steed. Oh, it is getting toward dusk! Oh my god! We're gonna go ride down to Dale, and we're gonna watch the sunset over Lake Town because it's so cool. And we're gonna run into this pillar while we're at it. So Warsteed is a much faster mount, and you can also do combat in certain areas on that mount. But I want to take a quick look at the Lonely Mountain from over back. Whoa, hello. From back behind my character, it looks like that. Alright, let's go to Lake Town, because one of the really cool things in this game are the sunsets and the skybox. Ever Beyond Reach, that's a very good question. And the question is, for the RP service, how much of that is enforced? And are there resources or future classes for keeping that up, especially for new to MMO LOTRO players? Basically, for the most part, it's not enforced. The hardest server in that is Laurelin, and the harshness is only in the form of people will probably report you for a name that's not in theme. If you name your character Pepsi, somebody's going to report you, because that's not an in-character name. However, my character could possibly be flagged for the name Phoenix, which is not a canonical name, but I don't care. But that's just her surname. A character can only have one name. This character's actual name is Kiriana. And for those who are interested in joining the Mythgard kinship later, over on either Landreval or Honor, Kiriana is my officer character on both of those servers, and I can get you into the kinship. So a kinship, if you're familiar with other MMOs, is a guild. It's a group of, whoa, organized players. Let's slide down the hill. And it's basically y'all hang out. You have a channel. You can talk amongst yourselves. Oh, by the way, this is the Dale. For those of you who are here at the very beginning and will be here later on tonight, or later on when I do my outro, you will hear a piece of music called The Bells of Dale, composed by Mr. Bill Champagne, aka Darth Celtics, for the game. And yeah, there should be a cliff up here somewhere. I'm gonna go across the bridge. And the flickering that you're seeing is actually because of a recent game update. It is something they're going to hopefully fix soon, because it's driving me bananas. I don't know about you. But one of the really, really awesomely cool things about the game is something called the Skybox. And the Skybox is the atmospheres that you're seeing right here. We're going to pop up on here. So this is the new lake town. This is Esgaroth on the lake. And I'm going to turn off my UI. And we're going to watch the sunset here, because sunsets in this game are freaking amazing. I'm trying to move my character without falling off the cliff. So this is the long lake. Yeah, let's not fall off the cliff. And back there is the Lonely Mountain and Dale, and you can see some ruins of other cities. But this is the long lake. And further down right here, you can see the bones of Smaug. And the remains of the old city that that foundered when Smaug went. So we're gonna hang out here for a little bit. Forachel at night. We can go to Forachel. I do have the port for that. There's a hunter port. So one reason why I wanted to use a hunter is they have skills that will allow you to travel to various places in the game, but you have to earn a lot of them through gameplay, which I haven't done. But some places we can go to Surrey-Kyle. It'll be amazing. But first, let's watch the sunset over the long lake, because it'll be amazing. And yes, hunter taxi, best taxi. Yeah, we call them hunter taxis. A hunter, unlike you may be familiar with World of Warcraft, has a pet with them over there. We don't have a pet here. We just have lots of arrows. However, unlike a WoW hunter, we also can wield weapons as well as shoot bows. So we have something they no longer have, and you know, we never had a pet. So there are classes that have a pet you can send out to kill things for you. The Lore Master. Well, again, we're going to get into classes a lot more in a future session. The class you choose will depend on which race you choose, and also what you want to do in terms of fighting things. And the music in the game is really awesome. We have been really blessed over the years with the composers that have worked on the game. The two big names you're going to want to know is Chance Thomas, formerly of Huge Sound. He did a lot of the composition of the early game, like the launch game, all the way up to the Riders of Rohan expansion. And then he came back when Mordor came out. But since the middle of the Gondor content, before Mordor, and running through current times, the current composer of the game is Bill Champagne, who they kind of discovered one day. He was always interested. I actually interviewed him on Monday. There is an interview with Bill Champagne. If you want to hear about him, and it was actually really cool because it was a world first interview. So it was the first person interview. So I was it's like, yay. He had always been a composer in his, he's a musician. He plays the trumpet, and he's always been interested in composing. He always wanted to get into composing, he wanted to get into the sound department at any company, and he got hired at Turbine, and he was in quality assurance, and he still is. He is the head of quality assurance for LOTRO. However, during when they were creating the Gondor content, and I have to tell you, what you guys see on screen is nowhere near as cool as what I'm seeing in the game. It is, the oranges are so much richer in the game. you have the link for that. Well, I have the link for that too, because I wrote it. But I can actually pull it out of my interview composer. Boop. Copy. Pasta. So that's the interview that I did with Bill Champagne at Standing Stone. 'Cause we were actually at the office, which is really cool. If you get an invite, as a general rule, by the way, it's not hard to find out where the studio is. However, it's a secure facility. Like, you can get into the building, but you can't get into the Standing Stone area without an invitation. So don't just randomly show up on the doorstep. Game studios kind of freak out about that. Like, they know me, and they would be like, why the hell are you here? So, don't ever do that. You almost forgot you don't have posting proofs here. Well, that's true, Wayward. You don't. Because this is not the official LOTRO channel, nor is it my channel. But, oh my god, the sunset. And again, I'm looking at the Twitch channel over here, and I'm looking at the game, and the game is like... I mean, this is like... once you actually see it for yourself, you guys cannot see the golds and oranges quite as good as I can see them. And I'm like, oh my god, why am I not taking screenshots of this stuff? Not that I don't have like a million of them, right? And we'll discuss in our next session how to take screenshots without all this other stuff involved. Like, you see all this? This is called the user interface. You can turn it off with a button and then take all the screenshots you like. I know, sunset's on the Long Lake because it's the reflection off the water. The sunset on the Gladden Mirror in the Vales of Anduin are also pretty cool. And so the devs not only made all the places that you would expect to see from reading the books. They fill in the blanks. They do create some things out of whole cloth, but one of the interesting things that they do is they try to make sure that it feels the same. And that's always been a really important thing for the dev team, and it's one of the reasons why I love them so much is they don't just copy the lore and stick to just what you see in the lore. They will extrapolate, but they will extrapolate carefully. So, this is like 5 shades of gorgeous. I know, Martini, it's so pretty. And the first hint that we had that this game had special graphics is seeing sunsets in the Shire. On certain days, certain day-night cycles, the sunsets will have, as the afternoon progresses, there'll be a rainbow that you can see over Bag End. It's really cool. And yes, you can go. We're gonna go to Bag End. We're totally gonna go to Bag End. And so now it's fading into purple because it's getting into the actual nighttime. The clock will tell you up here in the corner what time of day it is. So the golds have faded. It's fading into purple. Sunset in the Shire. Heck yeah. I think my first screenshot was actually one of Orion. Right? Menelvagor. Over a place called Kellendim, which was a turbine-created location in Erdluin. Sunset looking... Ooh, yeah. You still haven't figured out when gloaming is. Gloaming is basically between dusk and nightfall. It's actually a real term, and I love that term, gloaming. So anyway, the sun has set. We're going someplace cool. We can go to... we've been to Lorien. I remember I told you Lorien was like really, really cool at night. We're going to bop there real quick so you can see what I was talking about. And then we're going to bop to a few other places. See, it looks like that at night. Well, hello. Wait. Did I choose the wrong one? Oh yeah, this is the thing. But if I recall correctly, you can't actually get out here into Lorien itself. Because I picked the wrong one. Let's go to Karis Galathon. This is a feature of a different segment of content we will talk about. We'll get there, but I don't want to confuse folks. Okay, here we are. Lorien at night. Let's do the very dangerous thing of hopping on a war steed. A war steed is a very fast horse. It's like driving a race car through downtown. Through your downtown, you probably don't want to do it unless you're a Formula One driver. So you notice we went from the golds, we're going into the purples. Purples! And the lights come on, and it's really, really beautiful at night. It's a little bit early for, like, the best part of, oh, you don't want to go that way. Go to the nursery. And one thing I like about LOTRO is by keeping as true to the lore as they could, one of the things you will not find in this game, ladies, can I hear a heck yeah for the lack of metal bikinis. The attire, it can be dyed. See, look at the blue lights. I love it. And it gets actually richer in color as the night progresses. We're not going to stay very long because there's so many other places we can go. But the outfits that you can wear, they don't show a lot of skin. Except on male dwarves, there is a bareless, bare-chested dwarf cosmetic that people can get. Let's go to Rivendell. Some of the dresses are pretty busty, yeah, but they're not, like, really... There is a distinct lack of overly sexualized attire in the game, which I love. Alright, so this is the Valley of Imladris. We're just going to take a quick peek at it because we have many places to go. That over there is the House of Elrond, the last lonely house, right there. And there's other houses here where people live and vendors that sell you things. And you can find all of the members of the company here. And there's a path up there to the Misty Mountains. I know I'm expected. But this is the Valley of Imladris. With its waterfalls and whatnot. It's so gorgeous. And no human form Shelob. So here's the thing about that other game that you're referring to. Is the canon point they talked about is Shelob isn't a spider. Shelob is a spirit in the form of a spider. So theoretically Shelob could incarnate herself as something else, but she chooses to be a spider. LOTRO didn't do that. In fact, one of the things that we saw on Monday at the office was the guy who was animating Shelob for the new raid that just came out. And if you don't like spiders, you won't want to do the raid. I'm just saying, except the music is really good. Yeah, very much no cleavage. We like it that way. And look, there's a couple of players running around doing their thing. We're going to leave them in peace, as you do. So this is the Valley of Rivendell. And I'm using a special tool to help me travel places. This is a player-created, and it's called an add-on or a plugin. We'll talk about them more later. It's called Travel Window. And it lets you go to places you can go to. As a hunter... since we mentioned the Shire, I'm going to return to my camp, which is currently set for the party tree. We're going to pop on over to the Shire, take a look at it. Since it's now officially nighttime, you'll hear one of my favorite pieces of music in the entire game, written by a gentleman called Stephen De Gregorio. Now, some of the older places in the game that have been here longer look a little bit simpler. And that's because the dev team learned so much over the course of time to make things look better. And so this is Bywater down there. Actually, this is Hobbiton, and Bywater is over there. And way up on the hill is Tuklen, so you can see how they had to compress space to make things work. And Mickle Delving's over that way, but here's the party tree. A lot of in-game events happen here. A lot of festivals and stuff that players hang out and do. But we're going to go up the hill because what's up the hill? We're going to rubber band our way up here. We're going to see Labilian Lotho because this is Bag End. How dare I destroy your fireworks? You deserved it, Lobelia. So this is Bag End. You can go in at any time. It's not locked or anything. Apparently, I've upset Lobelia, so I don't want to go trample in her home for now. But yep, this is good old Bag End, where looks very beautiful. The Shire is one of the greatest zones ever in MMO history. I would actually agree with you there because the quests you do in the Shire are, thematically, they match what you expect to do for hobbits, right? You're not going out there fighting things all the time. There are fighting quests, but yeah. Where else can we go? Thorns Hall, Esteldine, Evendem, Evendel. I don't have a lot of guides. Where would you folks like to see us go? I'm going to go to Bree because there's a stable master there who can take us all kinds of places. We're going to go to Bree. Breetown looks a bit Edwardian. Not Edwardian, Tudorian. Alright, we're going to go ride through Bree. There's Harry Goatleaf, a little bit of an unsavory fellow. There are quests where you can interact with Bill Fernie. If you wanted to, you could try to punch him in the face. And up here is the Prancing Pony. Now, the Prancing Pony doesn't really match what we were told about in the books, because we were told it's built into the hill itself. They recently revamped the hill to make it look better, but this is the Prancing Pony. See? There's a sign. And this is a little stage they put in, and there are groups of folks who play musical instruments. You can play music in Lord of the Rings Online through various instruments they have created. And there is a rather large music community that has concerts on a fairly frequent basis. Like on a daily basis. So we're riding through Bree. Where would you like to go see right now? We have been to Erebor. We've taken a look at it. We passed by Dale. We overlooked the new lake town. We went to Bag End in the Shire. How did you get up there? No, I don't want to know. I really don't want to know. Where's someplace cool that you'd like to see that we haven't been to yet? I know, Darnelf. We did lose Jeff Roy of the Andoon Ensemble. I'm going to go to their concert tomorrow, and I'm going to be very sad. I'm going to bring a Kleenex. Forachel! Yeah, you said Forachel. We should go to Forachel. Wait, do I have Forachel on this character? I don't. Oh, no. You know what I should do? I switch over to a character that does have Forachel. Why don't I have Forachel on this character? Oh, man. Sorry, Kyla. Westgate of Bree. Well, yeah, let's go to the Westgate of Bree. One you... The thing I dislike about War Steeds is they do that. And this is a stable master. They can take you to all kinds of places. Been to Rohan yet? We have not been to Rohan. We can go to Rohan here in a minute. I'm really looking forward to Rohan housing coming out in the game. Let's see. Do I have Suri Kyla? I don't have it unlocked, and I don't have Mithril Coin. Well, gosh darn it. You know what we're going to do? Rohan music is some of the best. Yes, the news about when Rohan Housing is coming out, they said over the weekend it should come out when Helm's Deep comes out on the Legendary servers. So it would probably be sometime this summer, I would guess. Because they just released Riders of Rohan on the Legendaries. So it's generally in the ballpark of 4 months. So if this character can't go there, I know my main can. My main is somewhere in the bad places. And head north for a winter vacation. I know. So we're going to switch to my main character who I know has... Oh, speaking of Rohan, she's in Rohan right now. So we're going to go to Rohan. So you get Rohan anyway. So how cool is that? They just added something cool to Rohan. You can actually see the Rohan housing instances sitting there. It's really cool. Does anybody have any questions about the installation of the game? Because I'm trying to avoid going into stuff that we're going to talk about more in depth in future classes. Anybody lost on how to install the game? Or are you all still patching who don't already play? Because like half of you folks, I know you play. Alright. So this is my character. This is my main. Her name is Phoenix because I'm that dork. So this is what will eventually be the Rohan housing. Like players can buy these houses. And canonical constellations like the Plow. Actually, all of Ursa Major is here. We're going to do a slight astronomy lesson. Did I give them the link to fix DirectX if that's a problem? I did not, Bookworm. If that comes up as a question, I will certainly do that. But for the moment, let's see if they can get it installed currently. You are patching. Nice! So here's the fun fact of the skies in the game. I'm going to turn my UI off to make it easier to see. If you see, and unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this may not be visible to somebody who has color blindness, but some of the stars are blue. They have a very faint blue tinge to them. Like right here above my character, you can see what we in America call the Big Dipper. If you keep looking, it's kind of hard to see with all the clouds there, but all of the little tiny blue stars are Ursa Major, the real-life constellation, right? And there's also the moon. And over here, facing this away, and again, you can't really see because clouds, is Orion. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit. There's Orion. See, we got the you know, Beetlejuice, Bellatrix, and the belt of Orion right here. You've got his bow here, or his shield, and then his club up here. And you can see up here the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Now, here's the fun thing. If it is a blue star, it stays in place. If it is a white star, I'm going to place my cursor point right there, and I'm going to take my hands off the cursor. We're going to let it sit. You see, the white star is moving from the point of my cursor. All right? So all of the white stars actually rotate overnight, but Orion, the Pleiades, and Ursa Major do not. There are no other constellations. These are all in-character constellations. And also the moon, as you can see, I'll put my cursor right there. The moon is moving. The moon actually, its position in the sky will tell you how, you know, what time of night it is as it rises and sets. It doesn't change phase in any given area. Like, if you go to Rohan, the moon will always look like that phase. But if you go to, say, anywhere in Eriador, the moon is a full moon, no matter what time of day or whatever. So there is actually, I had been keeping track of what phase the moon is in various zones. And there's some places like in Dol Amroth in Gondor, which we can show you because I have a house there. The moon is like in a crescent. It's really cool. Yeah, basically it's meant to be the night sky as Tolkien would have seen it as he stepped outside. And of course it's based on sky in the UK. So this is Rohan. This is the Kingstead. And of course, you can't really see it from here. So we're going to go for a little bit of a ride so you can see where we actually are. And I like the fact that this character's Warsteed has a lamp on it. We're going to go over here. And we're going to stop. And we're going to look up the hill. What is that? Oh, could that be the Golden Hall? That is indeed Medicel, because we are looking at Edoras behind us. I'm going to try to get a good view of it from here. There we go. Except trees in the way. There we go. And that's Edoras. And there's also, if you are on the steps out front of Edoras as the sun sets, it is to die for. It is so good. Yeah, you can earn LOTRO points fairly easily in the game. In fact, a lot of people do. You can, however, avoid paying any real money to Standing Stone if you so desire. It's just going to take time. You can grind up LOTRO points actually pretty easily. Make an alt, do some early questing, get some quick LOTRO points, then delete the character and do it again. It also can be a bit dull and grindy, but it is what it is. Okay, so this is one of the places in Rohan. That big honkin' tower in the distance is part of Snowbourne, named after the river. You can't currently get into that place over there. They just, hey! Urkai. And you might be wondering, why is he not attacking? It's because I'm so over-leveled, he's afraid of me. He can't. I can attack him and it'll probably wipe him out. But anyway, let's go to somewhere else really cool. There was a request for Forchel. So we are going to actually take a side quest. We're going to go to my premium house because I mentioned the moon in other places. We're going to go to Belfast real quick. And then we're going to go to Forchel. And that's where we're going to end our session tonight, I do believe. Because it's almost 6 o'clock. I'm going to hit up my ingredient crates while I'm here. If my horse doesn't overshoot them, goodness gracious, what are you doing here? Can I use that? Yes. And I'm doing these because they are... I'm getting... Oh, you silly thing. Get off the horse. Get off the horse! There we go. And those are used in crafting. As you see, this is the place where I craft things. And this is a housing decoration you get called the Standing Stone. It's really cool. But anyway, you notice I had mentioned the moon is different in different places. Let's go check this out. Zoom in. Look at those stars. There's the Big Dipper. The moon is different. Oh my gosh. It's a different phase. You notice it's on the opposite face. Pretty cool. And there's Orion hiding over over the White Mountains. So this is a house. Players can purchase houses in the game and put things down to, you know, either look pretty or be functional. So I do the crafting where you can make things. Alright, and we wanted to go to Forchel. Since I don't have a direct port there, I will go to Bree. Yeah, I have the crafting stations on my property here, and on, I think no, it's not on Legend, only here on Crick Hollow. So we're going to Bree, and the reason we're going to Bree is because I do have the Suri Kyla thing unlocked on this character. And then we're going to go look at how amazing think I actually knew that player. I've seen their name around before. The view of the Bay of Belfast for crowd. I know, isn't it? And the music is so peaceful. In fact, the Belfast housing music was the first music that Darth Celtics, Bill Champagne, wrote for Lord of the Rings Online. It was one of those cases where they were like, well, I can do this for you. And he kind of just angled his way in. All right, Suri Kyla, let's go to the very cold Forahel. And the epic storyline in Forahel is really amazing because it touches on the fall, the death of Arvedue, the last king of Arthedain. It's really cool. So this is where the Losoth live, and it's very, very much like, you know, living in Lapland. Lots of... Well, we're not sure if these are stone or bone. If that's scrimshaw or not. I personally have the theory that it's scrimshaw. But here, we're going to find someplace really awesome, really cool. Yeah, that was me being, you know... we're going to go over here. So this is the Bay of Forahel, and there is a sea monster in it. I'm sorry, it was one beached. And we're gonna go over here. We're not gonna, don't go in the water, you will freeze to death. That's a thing. So we're gonna stop here. I'm gonna zoom in. And we're gonna look up. And we're gonna look around. And there's the Pleiades, and over there behind the hill is Orion. And there's our moon. See, it's the full moon. And the Big Dipper, or the Plough if you're in the UK. And it just looks like this all night long, and it's so gorgeous. Just look over the bay. It's very peaceful. It is so beautiful. Giant ribs, but we don't know giant ribs of what, though. They look like tusks. But again, what giant animal it could be, no idea. So this is Lord of the Rings Online. This is basically what it looks like in most places. You notice I didn't take you to Mordor because I didn't want to scare you. We could have ridden up the slopes of Ordruin and thrown ourselves in, but there are actually quite beautifully constructed areas in North Ithilien where the flowers are. There's, in terms of how awesome it looks, Mordor actually looks pretty cool. I mean, when you go to Mordor, you're expecting we all expect a certain image from having read the books, and it fits the bill. I mean, you go up the slope of Mount Doom and you look over the plateau of Gorgoroth, you're really like, holy Christmas, I'm in Mordor. So, the Northern Lights, I know! And there is a roving... Well, we're going to talk about roving fights later on. Stormblom, we have not really talked about the things you can unlock by being Premier. But I did link the account types website from the wiki. The LOTRO wiki that I linked earlier, lotro-wiki.com, is a fan-run site, but they're actually pretty good about being truthful and being accurate. If some of their stuff is not a complete set of things, it's not 100%, it doesn't have everything there, mainly because it's a volunteer fan-run project. It is not in any way endorsed by Standing Stone Games or Turbine previously, but they are aware of its existence and, in fact, will promote it as they see fit. The wiki is really your best friend, which is why I highly recommend, if you have any questions about things and I'm just not around, you can look on the wiki. The caution is you may run across concepts that are more advanced than where we are in our class, and holy goodness, doesn't that look good? You was rating, so you didn't hear everything? Yeah, we didn't really go over like the specific unlocks that you get for being Premier. But I can go look some of that stuff up, and because some of the things they limit is what you can do quests in. Also, how much in-game character gold you can have. Because that webpage, the account types webpage on the wiki, really does go over why you might consider being a VIP. The main thing is you don't have to buy quest packs, and pretty much everything's unlocked. Plus, you get, free LOTRO points every month, which is really nice. You get more inventory, which is bags to carry stuff in. You don't have a cap on currency, which means you can have as much gold as you can manage to acquire. You can use a thing called swift travel, which will allow you to go from place to place without actually riding from place to place, which is how we got here to Surikaila. You can also use what's called the wardrobe, which is where you create outfits for your character and can play dress up Barbie. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can get, and we'll discuss a little bit more about paid versus free when we get into races, because some of the races you have to be VIP to get, some of them you have to buy later. Like for example, the new Stout Axe Dwarf race, you have to buy it either with LOTRO points on the store, which is available now, or you have to buy the Minas Morgul expansion to get it. So a lot of the perks that you get for being a subscriber to the game are mainly conveniences. The game does progress a bit faster because you get that extra bonus rested XP, which is really cool, and especially on a weekend like this. The downside is, yes, you're paying $15 a month or less if you buy a multiple month purchase. Like you can buy up to a year of time in advance. You can actually buy more than that with real money, but again, you don't have to if you don't want to. So some of the things you will get to keep if you are VIP, but then you stop subscribing, is you will keep anything that you've unlocked on a single character in terms of content. Things like the swift travel things you've unlocked on any given character, your bags, your gold limit, some of the stuff that you can maintain some stuff, but you can't add to it. If you still have a rested XP bar there at the bottom, but you can use what's there, but you don't get any more. So, again, the website actually does have a comparison table that lets you know what you're getting into. I would recommend, until you feel like you are definitely going to play the game long term, just try the free-to-play account. See if you actually enjoy the basics of playing the game first. Because if you don't enjoy playing the game, then what's the point of throwing money at it, right? But beyond that, that's pretty much it for this very first session of LOTRO 101. Next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Amarvorn is late to class. Shame on you. It's 4 o'clock Eastern time. Bearing in mind, daylight saving next week. There will be a VOD later to watch, if you know. So it mainly depends on one's finances. I had the opportunity to do the lifetime when it was offered. So glad I did. But some people, $15 a month can be too much. It depends on what else they're paying for, and we don't judge. There are some folks who will look down their nose at people. Like, you can't afford $15 a month. Just don't buy Starbucks 3 times a week. What you do with your money is your own business, and we're not going to judge you for it. So if that's not within your means, that's perfectly fine. You can play free to play. If you want to learn all the tricks of playing completely free to play, then I would highly recommend following a streamer called Big Ed Mustafa. He is one of the official LOTRO streamers. He streams that on LOTRO Stream, twitch.tv/LOTRO Stream, Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. He will go through content. He'll show you all kinds of stuff in the game. You will watch him craft. You will watch him fish. You will watch him eat food on camera. We all do that. You will also watch him do some features of the game called tasks and inventory management, as you do. He plays the game, has never spent a single dime of real money on the game. He has ground up LOTRO points enabled to buy whatever he wants in the game. So you don't have to. It's basically an investment of money or an investment of time, whichever one works better for you. Again, I personally am like, I like throwing money at the game because it's worthy of my money that I have that's disposable income, but some people may not have that income available, and that's perfectly fine. Do what you got to do with what you got. But it just really depends on what works best for you. And there are ways and means, like maybe you can do VIP for this month and that month, but maybe not later because something happened. Like, unfortunately, you had to fix something on your car or something. You suddenly don't have that $15 disposable money, and that's fine. So, again, I'll be here next Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, going over class number 2. We're going to talk more in depth about the UI. And we're going to go into fairly decent detail about what it is, how to rearrange it, why you should never want to hit the X button, things about keybinds, and all kinds of other fun stuff. However, I hope to see you again next week. And if you know anybody who is interested in learning LOTRO but might be intimidated, because a lot of the beginners sites and guides out there assume that you already play LOTRO, or, well, you already play video games in general. So I wanted to be really basic and, start from the perspective of how would I be teaching my mom how to play LOTRO? Which is kind of a strange thing because my mom plays Diablo, but she's not really a gamer per se. But there were folks in the Signum community who are more academics, and they really aren't too hip on all the video game stuff, but they wanted to join Corey in his Exploring Lord of the Rings classes. So hopefully by the end of spring, we will get you in-game, and then you can join us every Tuesday night at 9:30 Eastern, or whenever Corey starts, because he operates on Wizardly Standard Time. And you can then join us on those field trips, which are a heck of a lot of fun. So thank you all for being here. And as I love to say, if you can't be good at it. And I'll see you next week.